I was born in Holbrook, which is out east on Long Island. I grew up in a really happy family with my parents and my brother. I was raised Jewish. We were always a part of a temple. I feel very connected to my past and to my history. I remember going to my grandfather and asking him lots of questions. As a Jewish person, it's hard not to feel connected some way to the past and what our families have gone through, whether directly or indirectly. I have always had a penchant for old things. From the time I was a little kid, people used to always tell me I had an old soul. And my mother and I would take out the old yellow book and we'd pull out the map and we would look for garage sales. And so that kind of started it for me. And it's always just been a passion I've always loved. I actually wasn't in the mood to go tag sailing on that particular day. I was tired and my husband said, no, we're in Belmore, let's just stop, there's this one sale. And I said, okay, I'll go in. And he stayed in the car with our daughter while I went inside. It was a big house, it was an older home, it hadn't been remodeled in a little while. Generally, the estate sales are conducted by professionals, so you don't know the reasons for why a homeowner is selling off their belongings. I made my way upstairs to the bedroom. There was a huge walk-in closet and nobody was up there, so I started to look around and there were a few things that caught my eye and I proceeded to throw them over my arm. And out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a very distinct pattern. It was a pale blue-gray and a beige stripe. When you see that stripe, it's the color of the blue, it's the color of the beige. It just instantly stops your breath. Like I just knew. I knew exactly what it was. So I added this jacket that was in a garment bag to my arm. I didn't really look at it very closely. I took it downstairs, I brought it to the proprietor of the sale. I said, how much? He said $10. I gave him a $10 bill for all the clothes I had, and I quickly walked out to the car. And I remember getting into my truck, my husband was sitting next to me, and he said, what's the matter? And I said, you have no idea what I have in my arms. So I opened it up, and that's when I noticed the rust-colored stains, the years of dirt, and a very distinct set of numbers. I didn't know that it had numbers on it. I just knew that it was a striped jacket. And then when I saw the numbers, it concreted it for me. I knew that it was a Holocaust jacket and it had to be real. The basic information I had was the address of the house. I knew the address of the house and I knew the numbers on the jacket. So the first thing I did was look to see if there were any databases that had numbers registered. I found that there was someone who wore the jacket registered to that number, Ben-Zion Persetsky. He was a Lithuanian Jew who was sent to Kaufering and liberated in 1944. I then looked back to the home where I had initially bought the jacket, and I did some searches in the local records and found out that it was owned by a Ben and Chaya Perez. And I thought, Bensi John Peretsky and Ben Perez are very similar names, and full knowing that many people who came to this country after the war changed their names, I felt it was too much of a coincidence. I looked at findagrave.org to see if he was still living. So that was how I discovered that he had died in 1978, and that was how I started the research, and that's what I came to the museum with. I handed them all of my research and I said, this is what I've got. You know, there was an obvious excitement and then a sort of fear in the air that this was actually a Holocaust jacket, that this had gone through this horrific point of history and made it out to the other side. The owner of the jacket had several children and a wife that was still living, and they had no idea that the jacket existed, in part because their mother had Alzheimer's and possibly wasn't capable of mentioning it. Ben had passed away in 1978, and they were very young when he passed, and so I don't think he really ever had a chance to discuss his history and his past in World War II. Perhaps he didn't want to. Well, the fact that this jacket sat in that closet since 1978, no one talked about it, that also is pretty amazing. this jacket's history hits really close to home, not just because of my family's involvement with the Holocaust, but because of a much more modern tragedy. On September 11, 2001, my brother Joshua, who was 24 at the time, was killed in the attacks on the World Trade Center. I think it's very easy to hold on to photos and objects as a way to feel close to people who are no longer in our lives. For me, it's obviously very important to never forget, the people who matter most to you. Even though it's been 15 years since his passing, I know that every time someone contacts me with a photo I'd never seen before, or told me a story about how he impacted their lives that I never had heard before, something in me just lights up, and those memories are so few and far between. I think it's human nature to hope and pray for those unforeseen moments where someone can give you another viewing of your family member, of your loved one. I so badly want that for myself, so I'm really grateful to be able to do that for the Perez family. I definitely believe in destiny. I think I was meant to be in that house. I was definitely meant to find that jacket. The word for it is beshert, and so I am a firm believer in beshert. I think that everything happens for a reason, whether you can explain it in the moment or not. My brother is definitely always with me. Everything I do to make him proud. And I think that he'll be very proud of what has come of this very interesting find. We are all asked, regardless of your religion, to do good deeds. And in Hebrew, it's tikkun alam, which means repair the world. And I think we all have an obligation to do something bigger than ourselves. And this is my ability to give back and do something great for somebody else.